Call me Mary. I remember walking into that party, feeling like a complete mess. It was just a couple of weeks after Jason, my then boyfriend, decided he had had enough of us. It's not you, it's me, he said, the same old tired line. So there I was, drowning my sorrows in a glass of cheap wine, surrounded by couples looking all happy and in love at our friends' get-together. I felt out of place, like a sore thumb sticking out in a sea of bliss. Enter Alex. I hadn't noticed him until he was right beside me, his sudden appearance pulling me out of my gloomy thoughts. Looked like you could use some company, he said, his voice smooth, with a hint of something I couldn't quite place. I remember looking up, ready to give him a piece of my mind, but the words died on my lips. There was something disarmingly honest in his gaze that made me pause. Company, or a distraction? I retorted, my tone sharper than I intended. I was in no mood for small talk or flirting. Whichever you need more, he shot back with a grin that was both infuriating and charming at the same time. It was the first time in weeks that I found myself genuinely smiling, despite my best efforts to stay miserable. We spent the rest of the evening talking about everything and nothing. Alex had a way of making the mundane interesting and the heavy stuff seem lighter. He didn't pry into why I was upset, nor did he offer any unsolicited advice. He just was there, making me laugh and forget about the heartache, if only for a few hours. As the party winded down, he offered to walk me home. It's late, and the streets aren't exactly friendly at this hour, he said, a note of concern in his voice that felt comforting. I hesitated for a moment, my mind screaming at me that it was a bad idea to walk alone with a guy I had just met. But then, looking into his eyes, I felt an inexplicable trust. Alright, but if you try anything funny, I swear I'll scream, I warned him, half joking, but also dead serious. Alex threw his head back and laughed, a sound that was unexpectedly delightful. Fair enough. I promise to be the perfect gentleman, he said, offering me his arm in an exaggeratedly gallant gesture. That walk home was the beginning of everything. We talked about our jobs, our families, our dreams, and our disappointments. Alex worked in IT, a geek at heart with a passion for old-school video games and a knack for fixing just about anything. I told him about my job in marketing, how I loved the creativity it allowed me but hated the office politics. By the time we reached my apartment, I didn't want the night to end. There was something about Alex that felt right, like a puzzle piece I didn't know I was missing. Thanks for tonight. I needed it more than I thought, I admitted, feeling a twinge of vulnerability. Anytime, Alex said, his voice soft. And hey, if you ever need a partner in crime or just someone to vent to, you know where to find me. And I did. In the days and weeks that followed, Alex and I grew closer. Our initial banter turned into deep conversations, and the more I got to know him, the more I liked him. He was caring and attentive, always there when I needed a shoulder to lean on or a laugh to brighten my day. It wasn't long before our friendship blossomed into something more. Looking back, I can hardly believe how quickly things progressed. But with Alex, everything felt easy, natural. It was as if we were meant to find each other that night, to heal each other's wounds and build something new together. The day he asked me to be his girlfriend, he did so with a clumsiness that was utterly endearing. So, I've been thinking, which is always a dangerous thing, he started, scratching the back of his neck nervously. But I really like you, more than I've liked anyone in a long time. And I was hoping, maybe, you'd feel the same way? I remember laughing, not at him, but at the absurdity of the situation. After all the heartache and disappointment, I had found someone who made me feel alive again. I do, Alex. I really do, I said, and the smile he gave me in return was everything. The honeymoon phase, they say, doesn't last forever. But when the shift came for Alex and me, it hit like a freight train. I'd come home from work, bone-tired from the day's grind, only to find Alex sprawled on the couch, eyes glued to the TV, surrounded by a day's worth of mess. At first, I brushed it off, chalking it up to bad days or just a man's typical disregard for clutter. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the pattern held. One evening, after a particularly long day, I walked in to find the living room looking like a disaster zone. Seriously, Alex? I couldn't keep the frustration out of my voice as I kicked a path through scattered shoes and gym bags. You've been home for what, 4 hours? And the place looks like this? Alex barely glanced up from his game. What's the big deal? It's just a bit of mess, he replied, his tone dismissive. A bit? You call this a bit? My patience was wearing thin. I've been at work all day, and I come home to this. It wouldn't kill you to tidy up a bit, would it? He shrugged, a gesture that made my blood boil. I work too, you know. Why should I spend my free time cleaning? Because you live here, I shot back. It's called being an adult, Alex. Taking responsibility. His response was to turn up the volume on the TV, effectively ending the conversation. I stood there, fuming, as the realization sank in. This wasn't just about the mess. It was about respect, partnership. And right then, it felt like I was lacking both. One night, in a desperate bid for some semblance of order, I decided to tackle the kitchen. The sink was piled high with dishes, leftovers turning into science experiments. As I scrubbed and scraped, I couldn't hold back the tears. This wasn't the life I envisioned. This wasn't the partnership I signed up for. Alex found me there, elbow deep in suds and misery. Hey, what's this? He asked, his voice softer now, laced with concern. I shook my head, unable to find the words. I'm just tired, Alex. Tired of feeling like I'm doing this all alone. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, I get it. I'll try to do better, okay? But trying didn't seem to translate into action. Days passed, and the pattern continued. Promises were made and broken, leaving me to wonder if this was our new normal. The man I married, the partner I thought I had, seemed more like a distant roommate, leaving me to question where we went wrong. It wasn't just the chores or the mess. It was the growing gap between us, the silent meals, the unspoken frustrations. I missed the man who walked me home that night, who made me laugh and feel loved. Now, I felt more like a caretaker than a wife, struggling to keep us afloat in a sea of indifference. Alex, we need to talk, I said one evening, the words heavy with a mix of dread and hope. This isn't working. We're not working. And I don't know how to fix this if you're not willing to meet me halfway. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the old Alex. I know I've been a jerk, he admitted, his voice low. I'll try harder, I promise. Promises. I wanted to believe them, to hold on to the hope that we could find our way back to each other. But as the days turned into weeks, and the mess remained, those promises felt more like echoes of a past we couldn't reclaim. The mess around the house grew worse, if you can believe it. It wasn't just clothes or dishes anymore. I found dirty socks in the fridge once. Yeah, you heard that right. In the fridge, next to the butter. I walked into the kitchen, ready to make some coffee, and there it was, the sock, chilling with the dairy. Alex, I yelled, holding up the offending item like it was evidence in a trial. Explain this. He wandered in, looking bewildered and not the least bit guilty. Oh, must have dropped it, he said, as if that was a normal thing. In the fridge? Really, Alex? What's next, shoes in the microwave? My voice was dripping with sarcasm. I was beyond frustrated. He just shrugged, that infuriating nonchalance on full display. Could you just chill? It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? I was fuming. It's disgusting, Alex. Your stuff is everywhere. It's like living in a dumpster. He rolled his eyes, turning to leave. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Just pick it up if it bothers you so much. That was the last straw. I'm not your maid, Alex. This is our home, not your personal landfill. I can't do this anymore. Something's gotta give. We glared at each other, the tension thick. It was clear we were at an impasse. I thought of reaching out to his mom, hoping maybe she could knock some sense into him. Desperate times called for desperate measures, after all. So, I called her. "Hey, Mrs. Thompson, it's me. I don't know what to do about Alex. The mess, the disrespect. I'm at my wit's end." There was a sigh on the other end. "Honey, Alex has always been a slob. I cleaned up after him his whole life. I thought he'd change for you." Her words were like a punch to the gut. "So, what, I'm just supposed to deal with it? Clean up after a grown man because he never learned to do it himself? It's just how he is. He needs someone to take care of him, like I did. Now it's your turn, I suppose." My heart sank. I didn't sign up to be his caretaker. I thought we were partners. She was sympathetic, but firm. "You're going to have to talk to him, dear. Lay down the law or something." That's what I should have done years ago. Hanging up, I felt no better. If anything, I felt more alone. It was clear that Alex had grown up pampered and unaccountable. And now, according to his mom, it was my job to reform him. I confronted Alex again, armed with a new resolve. "We need to talk. This can't go on. I'm not your mom, and I'm not here to clean up after you. You're an adult, act like it." It was a conversation we'd had before, but this time I meant business. The ball was in his court now. I could only hope he'd finally play fair. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the distance between Alex and me grew wider than the Grand Canyon. Our home felt more like a battleground than a haven. The love and laughter that once filled our space were replaced by silence and tension so thick, you could cut it with a knife. One evening, as I sat at the dinner table alone, staring at the 2 plates of food I'd prepared, waiting for Alex to join me, the weight of our situation hit me hard. He stumbled in well past the time we usually ate, his face flushed, not from the cold outside but likely from a few drinks after work. "Where've you been?" I asked, my voice barely hiding my frustration. It wasn't just about him being late, it was about him being absent when he was right there. Alex shrugged off his coat and dropped it on the chair, not bothering to hang it up. "Out," he said simply, as if that one word was explanation enough. "Out where, Alex? With who?" I pressed on, needing something more than his non-answers. He sighed, a sound of annoyance rather than remorse. "Just out with the guys from work. You know how it is." I didn't, actually. Our once shared experiences and stories had turned into his life and my life, with a chasm between. We used to go out together, remember? We had friends, a social life together. Now, it's like you're living a whole separate life. He finally looked at me, his eyes not meeting mine. "I just needed some space, okay? You're always on my case about something. The cleaning, the dishes, being home on time. Can't a guy catch a break?" His words stung, not because they were entirely untrue, but because they underscored how far apart we drifted. "A break?" I echoed, my voice rising despite my attempt to keep calm. "I'm not your warden, Alex. I'm your wife. Or at least, I thought I was. Partners give each other breaks, they don't take breaks from each other." Alex didn't respond. He just moved past me, heading for the fridge to grab a beer, as if that could solve everything. I watched him, a man I no longer recognized, and wondered how we got here. How did the man who once walked me home in the rain, who made me laugh until my sides hurt, become a stranger in his own home? "We're not okay, Alex," I said, the realization hitting me hard. "We're not okay, and I don't know if we can fix this." He paused, beer in hand, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the old Alex, the one who cared, who fought for us. But then he shrugged, a gesture that had become all too familiar. "Maybe you're right. Maybe we're not okay." His agreement should have been a relief, an acknowledgement of our problems. But instead, it felt like a door closing, a silent confirmation that we were too far gone to find our way back to each other. I used to hate the idea of business trips, preferring the comfort of home over the sterile environment of hotel rooms. But as the rift between Alex and me widened, those trips became my sanctuary. Escaping the constant tension and the cold silence that had settled over our house was a relief. I'd brace myself every time I returned, expecting to walk into the aftermath of a tornado. Surprisingly, each time I came back, the house was spotless, which was the last thing I expected given Alex's usual disregard for cleanliness. The first couple of times, I was genuinely pleased, thinking maybe Alex had finally decided to pull his weight around the house. "Did you clean up all this?" I asked, unable to hide my shock and a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could turn a new leaf. Alex just shrugged, an all too familiar, nonchalant gesture that irked me. "Yeah, figured it's the least I could do," he said, but his tone was off, too casual, like he was brushing off more than my question. Something didn't sit right with me, but I pushed it aside, grateful for the clean space, but unsettled by the sudden change. It was after another trip, coming home to the same uncharacteristically clean house, that curiosity got the better of me. I decided to thank the person I thought responsible, his mother. "Mrs. Thompson, thanks for cleaning up the house." "I didn't expect it, but it was a lovely surprise," I said, hoping to convey my genuine appreciation. Her confusion was a slap in the face. "Clean your house?" "Dear, I haven't been over in months." "Alex should be taking care of his own mess, not you or me," she said, her tone a mix of surprise and a bit of annoyance. My heart sank, and a cold realization crept in. Confronting Alex didn't take long after that. "Your mom didn't clean." "So, who did?" "Because it sure wasn't you," I demanded, my patience wearing thin, tired of the lies and the evasiveness. Alex squirmed under the pressure, his usual competent demeanor crumbling. "Look, it's not what you think," he started, but his voice was too hesitant, guilty. I pressed on, needing the truth more than I needed to breathe. "Who's been cleaning our house, Alex?" "Because it's obviously someone." The admission came too quietly, laced with shame. "It's someone I know, she's been helping out while you're away," Alex confessed, finally meeting my gaze, but all I saw was betrayal. "A someone you know? You mean a mistress? You're cheating on me, and her token of affection is cleaning our house?" The absurdity of the situation would have been laughable if it weren't so tragically pathetic. He tried to defend himself, the words fumbling out in a messy spill. "It's not like that. She's just a friend." "A friend who cleans and sleeps with my husband?" "That's a new one, Alex." My voice was bitter, laced with anger and a heartache that dug deep. "I found out about his infidelity not through whispers or clandestine messages, but through a clean house." The irony wasn't lost on me, and though my heart was shattered, I couldn't help but marvel at the bizarre twist my life had taken. After all this, I decided enough was enough. Divorce was the only option left for me. Alex, surprisingly, didn't put up a fight. He let me go without so much as a plea for me to stay. Maybe that was for the best, or maybe it just showed how far apart we'd really grown. A few quiet months passed. I settled into a small, clean apartment that felt more like home than the house I shared with Alex ever did. Just when I started to enjoy my newfound peace, I got a call that turned my calm afternoon upside down. It was Alex's mom, and she was livid. "Come back to Alex this instant," she demanded, her voice sharp and filled with frustration. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a moment, confused. "Excuse me? Why on earth would I do that?" "Because he's a mess without you. His house looks like a pigsty, and I'm sick of cleaning up after him. His habits are driving me insane." I couldn't help but chuckle, though I felt a pang of sympathy for her. "And how is that my problem, Mrs. Thompson? I'm not his keeper anymore." Her voice softened, but the desperation lingered. "Please, he needs someone. His little cleaning lady ran off the moment she saw what a disaster he is." The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. So, his mistress left because of the mess? That's poetic, in a way. She sighed, defeated. I just don't know what to do with him anymore. I took a deep breath, my decision clear. Mrs. Thompson, I understand it's hard, but I've moved on. Alex needs to learn to take care of himself, and you shouldn't have to clean up his messes either. It's not your job, and it's certainly not mine anymore. There was a pause on the line, and for a moment, I thought she might argue further. Instead, she simply said, I suppose you're right. I'm sorry for bothering you with this. It's okay. I hope things get better for you both, I replied, not unkindly. We ended the call, and I sat there for a moment, reflecting on the strange turn my life had taken. From a cluttered house and a failing marriage to a peaceful, tidy apartment all my own. I couldn't help but smile at the thought. Leaving Alex was the best decision I'd ever made, not just for my sanity, but for my soul. 6 months of silence passed since I walked away from Alex and that chapter of my life. Then, out of the blue, I remembered I had left something important at his place. With a sigh, I decided to retrieve it, thinking it'd be a quick in and out. Standing at the front door of the house we once shared, I knocked, waiting for any sign of life. Nothing. I used my old key to let myself in, not prepared for the scene that greeted me. The house was a disaster zone, garbage everywhere, the air thick with the stench of neglect. What the? I muttered, covering my nose with my sleeve. I called out for Alex, but the silence was my only answer. Concern growing, I checked the house and found him in the bedroom, looking like he hadn't moved in days, surrounded by filth. Alex! I yelled, shaking him gently. He was barely responsive, a shadow of the person he once was. Without hesitation, I dialed for an ambulance and the police, explaining the situation as best I could. When they arrived, I stepped back, watching as they took over, taking Alex to the hospital. As I waited outside, Alex's mom arrived, her face set in a familiar stoic mask. The police explained her son's condition to her, and her response was cold, detached. He's an adult. His choices, his consequences, she said, her voice devoid of any maternal warmth. I couldn't believe her indifference. He could have died in there, I said, anger and disbelief mixing in my voice. She just looked at me, as if I was a stranger speaking a foreign language. Not my responsibility, she stated flatly, turning away to talk to the officers. Standing there, watching the scene unfold, I felt a mix of emotions. Sadness for Alex, anger at his mother, relief that I had moved on. But above all, I felt a sense of closure, knowing that I had done the right thing by leaving when I did. This was no longer my life, my mess to clean up. I had my own path to follow, one that led away from this chaos and towards a future I was still writing. After everything that went down, I found out Alex was placed in a psychiatric hospital. Turns out, he had a progressive mental disorder that made him act the way he did with all that mess and his lack of cleanliness. Hearing that news hit me hard, way harder than I expected. Despite all the hurt and chaos, I couldn't help feeling sorry for him. So, I decided to visit him, even if his own mom couldn't be bothered. The hospital was stark and sterile, a far cry from the cluttered home we used to share. I met with his doctor, a kind man who seemed genuinely concerned for Alex. His condition's advancing faster than we hoped, he told me, his voice heavy with regret. At this stage, there's not much anyone can do except make sure he's comfortable and safe. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. And his mom? Does she come by? I asked, already knowing the answer. The doctor shook his head. Haven't seen her. It's tough, patients like your ex-husband, they need all the support they can get. I left the hospital with a heavy heart. Alex's mom hadn't changed a bit, still as cold and distant as ever. It was clear she had washed her hands of him, leaving him to face his demons alone. I couldn't help but wonder if things would have been different if she'd shown him a bit more love, a bit more care. As for me, life moved on. I found peace in my little apartment, a place I could call my own without any reminders of the past. I started anew, building a life that was entirely mine, free from the shadows of what used to be. My visits to Alex became less frequent, not because I didn't care, but because I realized it was time for me to let go and heal. I often thought about Alex, hoping he found some semblance of peace in his own mind. As for his mother, well, I hoped one day she'd realize the mistake she made in abandoning her son when he needed her the most. But that was a journey she had to make on her own.